What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Marvel 613 here. On this edition of the Marvel Roundtable, we take a look at the first full-length feature film heading into Marvel's Cinematic Universe Phase 4. But yet, we're going forward, yet sort of backward as we look back at not only the history of Natasha Romanoff and her quote-unquote second family, we also learn about the Red Room and learn about the Taskmaster and so many other things in Russian as we explore the origins of Black Widow on this edition of the Marvel Roundtable. What's going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Mr. Marvel 613 here. Welcome back to the Horny Goat YouTube channel, of course, the Horny Goat Podcast Network, where you can listen to us on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Of course, I am not alone. I am joined here by the wonderful members of the Horny Goat crew. We got the power couple, JP and Heather. What is up, fam?
Not much. He's watching a baseball game, so if I just randomly rush to hit the mute button, you know why. As he's personally demonstrating because somebody hit a home run.
Yes. The guy that they said, get rid of his ass. He's fucking 4 walk-offs this year. All right, I'm good now.
Okay.
Game's over. So
We're off. Oh, I thought he was giving. I thought he was going after a flyer and giving a Michael Jordan a high five. Anyway, and we've got Canadian Basement. What's up, Basement? Love the icon.
I'm the what they call him? The Crimson Tide or some shit.
His nickname's the Crimson Dynamo, but his name is the Red Guardian.
I am him, and you are me.
So, of course, this is the Marvel Roundtable, where we go deep diving into every single movie and show in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And as you can tell from the intro and all that fun stuff, we're going to be taking a look at the 2021 hit cinematic masterpiece that never got released in theaters, known as Black Widow. So this is, just saying before we got on here that we are getting dangerously close to catching up to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, we're catching up. I don't think we're ever gonna the end.
No. Now we're getting to the end of the Infinity Saga. So yes, we are getting to the end.
Well, no, Infinity Saga's done. We are now in the multiverse saga. Now everything's starting all over again. But there's a lot of remnants from this that have to go back in the Infinity Saga, but it's kind of wrapping up the end. So I get what you mean. But so this one is a very interesting movie because, and we've talked about this numerous times before, where Marvel, didn't have anything released whatsoever in 2020. No Marvel content whatsoever. And then we had the 4 shows that we just talked about previously, which you guys could go back and check out. We had WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and Basement's favorite show, What If? What if it was good? So when they announced Black Widow, obviously this was still in July of 2021, and it was still very pandemic-y. And this was very interesting because not only is it the first MCU film that was never released in theaters because it was exclusive to Disney Plus because they wanted to make sure with everything going on with the pandemic, but this is also the first full-length feature film of the next big phase, which we had no effing clue where things were going to go. And then not only that, but they're going backwards because this movie takes place. Right. This movie takes place, most of it, I should say, takes place chronologically between the events of Captain America Civil War and Avengers Infinity War because, obviously, spoilers, someone dies in Endgame. So, so right off the bat, this is a bit of a head-scratching start to the new phase. And I don't know, I'm not sure how much you guys were following it at this point in time. We're basically like this time last year, but I was certainly scratching my head. I'm like, why are they telling a story to go backwards? Like, there has to be some sort of major significance to this.
Well,
go ahead, Basement.
I think we're all going to be on the same page with this one being released out of time. And it does impact the movie. Like as a standalone movie, if you're just looking at it itself, or if you want to put it where it belongs to be put, then it's different. But it coming out, and I think this is why it was a Disney Plus release, because if it was a theatrical release, people would have expected a bit more of where it leads into, I guess. So it was smart on them to do it as a Disney Plus release. The movie, once you get past the idea that it shouldn't be being released where it's being released, I'd rather have them have at least released it, because they like the alternative is not have it at all.
Like other superhero movies.
In another comic world.
This movie, I am sorry to say, this should have been released between Infinity War and Endgame. Because I will argue it not only ruined, and actually, I'm not going to say it ruined Endgame, but it hurt that moment with the soul stone with her.
Endgame hurts it.
Huh?
Endgame hurts it.
Endgame hurts it.
Well, but this
and vice versa.
And vice versa, because we already know what happened. If they would have done this movie in between, what happens in Endgame would have more of an impact, and people would care more about Black Widow than they do.
This movie shouldn't. I don't agree with where your placement is, though. It should have happened after Civil War, because that's where it is technically taking place. Because if you do it between the two movies, then you have to make sense of the blip in this movie too. You could include things from that, because that's the time era where you guys are alluding to.
Well,
honestly, anywhere between Iron Man 2 and Infinity War, you could have put this movie. Anywhere.
Actually, yeah.
No, it has to like, well, with the script that they wrote, it has to happen after Civil War.
Well, I will say what to Heather's point though is like, with the exception of like not even the very beginning, but like the beginning opening part with her being chased by Thaddeus Ross and a couple of lines here and there.
I agree with that.
You could have,
if you're gonna change the script a bit, it could have been put in tune with any of the other first Avengers. Yeah.
To her death.
Right.
I think they were worried about doing that, and I still think this should have been a theatrical release in that time, and it should have been a movie about her and Hawkeye. They should have buddy copped them and done the Budapest shit. And then this could have been a Black Widow 2 direct to fucking Disney Plus about her origin story.
Now,
but I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, but before we get into the nitty gritty with the pre-production stuff and even some post-production stuff, which there's the very interesting little tidbit I want to throw to you guys. Aside from, I think we're all on the same page in terms of like its placement, in terms of its release in the timeline, as far as like we're going forward by going backward. Aside from that, I really enjoyed this movie, to be honest with you. Not like jumping for joy, but as you probably guess from my previous reviews and my tastes, I tend to lean more towards the street tier level superheroes like Captain America, Falcon and Winter Soldier. So this was right up my alley. So with a couple of small missteps, I thought it was actually pretty solid. But I think the biggest, I think we're all on the same page. The biggest misstep is the placement.
Yes, absolutely.
I liked this movie when I first saw it. On the rewatch, it has so many problems. From like a filmmaking perspective, it is a fucking mess of a movie.
One thing that I do like about this movie is it really humanized her.
It doesn't know what it wants to be. In all honesty, I'll talk about it. Like basically, this like when you say it humanizes her, it tries and never commits.
I thought it did.
It never commits to its actual themes. It sets up with these hugely weighty themes, and it fucking limp dicks it.
Like weighty themes? Like, what do you mean?
So the whole thing about her, like her, well, it's the family, it's the upbringing, it's the taking away of her ability to decide because of the Black Widow program and her sister's her sister in quotation. All that stuff. It shows you with these like weird, especially when it alludes to the program, it's all like chopped up images of how bad it was when taking the kids and putting them in containers and things like that. But then it just never really delivers on any of it. Like,
I see what you're saying. It doesn't really follow through with showing how incredibly horribly they
and
were
when it,
all treated as very young girls to become what
and
they are.
exactly, and when it finally comes to the time for them to actually follow through, they pop a joke or say a quip on the weightiest stuff in the but it's such a misstep. You can't build, yeah, I know, Connor, but you can't build a movie to deliver on something as serious as the topics are in this movie and then just fucking not.
I disagree. I think it humanized her.
I get where you're coming from, Basement, in terms of like, yeah, it's Marvel, yeah, but considering they
chose to make
the realm and the scope, the comedy is sometimes juxtaposed in the wrong spot. I mean, that's Marvel for you, but I get where you're coming at. But before we get into the nitty gritty of it all, I do want to give some love to all the wonderful people joining us live here on the chat, as of course we do this live on YouTube, youtube.com/Horny Goat. Federico, Alpha, Cody, my good friend Tim. We got Paul Arzola joining us in the chat. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Appreciate it, and let us know your thoughts about the Black Widow movie as we roll into it. So I'm not going to get too much into this, but apparently, as far as the pre-production stuff, just a couple of quick notes, and then really more so, I really want to talk more about this post-production note that I think you guys may or may not have heard about when it comes to Scarlett Johansson's thoughts about this film. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. So as far as the development, in February 2004, Lionsgate actually acquired the film rights for Black Widow. In April, there was supposed to be a different version of Marvel Studios producing. By June of 2006, Lionsgate dropped the project and the rights reverted right back to Marvel Studios. And they tried to basically go back and forth about a Black Widow movie, and then just kind of like got really, of course, thrown into the back burner. But apparently, when, of course, Scarlett Johansson was committed as being, Natasha Romanoff in Black Widow and Iron Man 2, Kevin Feige stated discussions with Johansson already taking place regarding a Black Widow standalone film, but the Marvel's focus was on the Avengers. So Johansson kept reprising her role until Johansson revealed that number of films her under contract had just been since she first signed to match the demand of the character, as Marvel not anticipated the audience great reaction to the character and her performance. So there was basically, I'm going to paraphrase because there's a lot more to go into, but basically the idea was that they were looking to do a Black Widow film sometime after Age of Ultron, but because they couldn't really decide with it, and then of course they had the bigger scope, and then they announced Infinity War and Endgame and kind of things going back and pushed back to the back burner. However, it was interesting enough that one person who was actually a pretty adamant, who was pretty adamant and publicly all about getting a Black Widow movie was Mark Ruffalo, of all people. Apparently, he made some couple of comments in interviews about saying, when are we getting a Black Widow film? And, of course, the internet took over, and there was enough demand in that time frame that they decided to pull the trigger. But as far as placement goes, it wasn't ideal. It looks like Feige and others wanted to do it kind of where it fit, but considering that they had, already things set in motion to head towards Infinity War and Endgame, they kind of, again, put it on the back burner. And now, as we'll see later on, it's more just like a catalyst and a launching point for bigger and better things. That's where we haven't seen it yet. Supposedly bigger and better things that we'll see in the future MCU. But, of course, the big thing I love to talk about is the controversy revolving around the theatrical release and the access. So, as I mentioned before, there was red carpet access, but it was apparently it was released in U.S. Simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus. Excuse me, I thought it was just one or the other. But apparently did not so great in the box office because, again, COVID. But more money was made off of Disney Plus. So here's where things get interesting. So apparently Scarlett Johansson was not too thrilled about that because, according to sources, and take this with a grain of salt, she apparently took less money up front with the understanding that she would get a certain % cut of the box office hits, which is not uncommon for some actors to do, depending on the role and depending on the film. But obviously, because Disney decided to shift gears and kind of split the audience between both theaters and Disney Plus, take a guess which people preferred more and did more of. Disney Plus.
The one where their government sat there and said you need to do this in order to stay safe so you don't get this deadly virus that's going around.
Mm-hmm.
So say they didn't release it on Disney
The
Plus.
controversy is what? She sued Disney because
She's not getting the
She didn't make the money off of the box office because of the fact that people watched it on Disney Plus.
and because of the climate of the time was stay home.
Okay, so how is she wrong?
She's not wrong.
Exactly. So I don't understand why people.
The problem is, I think some of her point rests on the theoretical or the hypothetical of how well it would have done in the box office, considering people didn't want to go to the movies at this time. It would have done better than it did. But I mean, I think a lot of people get pissed off when people like the super rich complain about not being richer.
Yeah,
And it's just bad,
it's a mix of that and the fact that she is one of those celebrities that was out there every week touting, stay at home, wear a mask, wash your hands, keep everybody safe.
Unless it's for my movie.
By the way, those who don't know, because I was, Marvel whore. It wasn't just a matter of it being available on Disney Plus as part of the subscription. You actually had to pay an extra amount of money in order to.
$30. It was like fucking expensive.
Yep.
And that's where they should have worked out something with her before the release to say, if we're going to release on Disney Plus as well, you'll get 0.05% of whatever we make on Disney Plus towards that movie's rental. You have to integrate that part if they've already worked out the box office release, because then you can just change terms whenever you want, and then the contract to me is null. If you're going to change terms like that, it's like, yeah, you'll get box office release, but guess what? We're not releasing box office, so you'll get nothing. Like, you can't. That's fucking horseshit.
So
I can't falter.
So interesting note, it said Eric Gardner at The Hollywood Reporter believed Johansson's case was potentially weak since disputes of this kind usually take place in arbitration, and that she had been forced into presenting a claim of tutorious interference rather than a standard contract breach due to a clause in her contract. She added that Johansson's complaint of Disney not waiting a few months for the market to recover from the impact of the pandemic was countered by the fact that Disney had already delayed the film's release by 1 year, since Disney would not want to wait too long after Avengers Endgame to release Black Widow when the MCU was already moving on. This was especially true since the film introduces important new characters to the franchise, such as Yelena. They also believed that the case would be resolved between Disney and Johansson before reaching court, and expressed surprise that Disney had let it get to this stage, given Warner Brothers had made agreements with stars for simultaneous releases in theaters and on HBO Max of titles like Space Jam and others. In August, Disney filed a motion to move the lawsuit to arbitration, citing Black Widow outgrossed other MCU films on its opening weekend with an impressive pandemic-era showing. Johansson's attorney criticized this move as an attempt by Disney to hide its misconduct in a confidential arbitration while describing their previous responses as misogynistic. Oh, that's great. A month later, the suit was settled on.
Talking to Aaron because he can't type it.
You're wrong.
Yeah. A month later, the suit was settled under undisclosed circumstances, though Deadline Hollywood reported that Johansson would receive over $40 million from Disney. Fucking. The settlement came after Disney chose to give theatrical-only release to subsequent 2021 films following the box office success of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which was, of course, exclusively theatrical windows. The last thing she says here is that she said in regards to the lawsuit, she felt, quote, very fortunate that nobody will have to go through what I went through, and thought that the case had made a positive impact in the industry and hopes for artists and creatives' lives and livelihood.
What she went through, like, oh my god, it's like she's fucking survived the Holocaust.
She got $40 million. So I mean, it is interesting to note, not necessarily because I think she was wrong. Like I'm on the same page with everybody here that she wasn't wrong, but it is interesting because this is the first and only instance of like. It's more so an interesting discussion about the idea of them doing a theatrical release versus, and then combining it with Disney Plus.
This is Disney using that movie to further their own goals of making Disney Plus a bigger platform.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm gonna I would side with her way over Disney Plus, the conglomerate that owns half the fucking world, using and abusing people as they tend to do. I think this the other thing though, before you go, JP, the other thing where people were kind of like not a big fan of this, I think this also came in tandem with her complaining about how Black Widow was portrayed as like a honeypot or sexually. And that was like, people are like, well, that's the fucking character, really? So, what do you? It's like, I'm gonna play a hooker in the movie, but can I wear like a fucking full-on onesie? Yeah, yeah. Like, it's like, come on, what's the character?
It is part of the character.
That I completely understand. But I will say that COVID had I never heard her publicly say, well, what did he say? An alternative for people to see her movie to avoid going out in public because of COVID. No, she did not sue Disney because people couldn't go out in public because of COVID.
No.
That's why I said
they breached the contract with her. In my mind, it's a breach of contract.
It is.
However, I'm gonna tack on right there. She's a grown ass fucking woman, and she was told it was gonna be going on Disney Plus. So why couldn't she
was she told,
the
like,
big
at the
ass
same
girl
time?
that she fucking is, and try to renegotiate her contract there?
Your face.
Well, I don't know if they even gave her that option.
I don't
know why
think
they would.
did. That's why she did what she did.
I will also state that, not that I say this is a good thing, but obviously this was a guinea pig test run for Disney's in terms of how they, because I think there was like one other film, I think it was Cruella. There was one other film that they released exclusively, or they did both. They did the theatrical and the Disney Plus.
It was Mulan, not Cruella.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It was Mulan. I knew it was a live action remake or something.
Oh,
And
those
are
are
the
forgettable movie.
There's no Mishu. It's fucking anyway.
There's no singing either. That's not a Disney movie.
It's not a
China.
good movie in general.
So the point I'm making though is that this was obviously one of the only 2 times that Disney did this, where they did a theatrical and Disney Plus release at the same time. So now it ain't happening again, because the next movie we do after that, which I'm really looking forward to, got an exclusively theatrical release, and it shattered box office expectations and records.
I can tell you why it did, because it was something brand new to the Marvel universe.
What I don't get
over again.
What I don't get is why they don't just fucking theatrical release, and then depending on how good the movie does in its first 2 weeks, either it's available in a month or it's available in 2 months on Disney Plus. Don't make it publicly known when it's going to be available on Disney Plus, but just react to the fucking market.
That's hard to do, because a lot of production companies actually enter into contracts with movie theaters to put the movies in the theaters for a certain period of time.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
that's been way back since VHS days.
In fact, two things to note. The first is the reason that movies push for big, strong opening box office weekends is because that is when the most money is made from that goes towards the studio. So the longer a film is in the movie theaters, the more the pendulum swings towards the theaters. That's why concessions are so fucking expensive, because that's where a majority of the movie theaters make their money. So, for example, if you have a movie that's out there for 4 weeks, the first week, like let's say I'm throwing numbers out there, it'd be like 80-20. Then it will go 70-30. Then it'll go 60-40. And then it'll go...
What if you just go with like a flat 2 months? And every movie we're going to release is in 2 months. Instead of theaters, it's on Disney Plus.
I mean, they're starting to do that a little bit. They did that with they did that with Doctor Strange, and they're doing that with Thor, where it's about 2 to 3 months out from the release. It goes right to Disney Plus before even like a digital release.
Disney owns Marvel, so they can do that.
Yep.
They're making $10 billion an hour, so it doesn't fucking matter. They can get sued by the fucking AMC. What is AMC gonna do? We don't want your movies? Well, that'd be the dumbest fucking thing ever.
If anything, I would argue that Marvel's going to be the thing that saves these movie theaters. But the other thing I was going to note too was I had it. I fucking had it. I had it, and now it's gone. There was a second thing I was going to say about this. Son of a bitch.
Fuck Mark Ruffalo. That guy just fucking irks me, man.
I love Mark Ruffalo. How dare you?
I dislike him.
No, and now I remember. Actually, I tagged this to our good friend Frank from The Harsh Truth. There was a interview from Hot Ones with Matt Damon, and
Matt Damon. Oh yeah, I saw that.
Oh, the whole thing about like how come movies are made so differently is because he's right. Beforehand, VHS and DVDs, you would get any money you didn't make from the theaters back again. But now everything is streaming, and so you've cut / eliminated that market to almost
you haven't
nothing.
Eliminated it. You've
cut it down.
You still
immensely,
make money off the movie going to Netflix,
but not as much.
And this is why, like, the idea of like B movies or movies that are more dramatic that aren't going to get the big box office will have to, first of all, be made for less. Movies are way too expensive as they are, and if you're going to make a fucking drama movie, why are you spending $1 million on CGI? It doesn't make any sense.
Shit, look at what's going on right now, right? Look at what do you call it? They're putting Spider-Man back in the theaters this week. They're also putting Avatar back in the theaters to help get ready for the
next one. But
I would say Roundtable.
Oh god, no! Those heavy dramatic movies. Like I think it was like when you look at Matt Damon and his work in the past, like Good Will Hunting or something like that. Those movies shouldn't cost the fucking $250 million. The most thing you're paying for is the actors involved. Those might be the movies you see start being like Netflix exclusive.
Yes, they are.
You know, HBO exclusive, and not so much theatrical. I mean, Marvel has simultaneously taken over and killed the movie industry.
But we can talk a little bit more about like different movie aspects. But I thought that out of all the production stuff, obviously that was the most interesting. Besides the fact that Black Widow was like placed, you know, they we're gonna do it, but then this whole blow up and the concept of, you know, really talking about streaming movies versus theatrical release fascinated me, especially in this case. So I figured I'd throw it to the masses. But that being said, I think it's time we go explore the origins of Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. Black Widow. See, even Wendy's excited. In 1995, young Natasha Romanoff and Yelena Belova are whisked away by their surrogate parents, Alexei. I'm gonna butcher these last names. Alexei Shostakov, originally Russia's Captain America, known as the Red Guardian, and a former Black Widow, Milena Vostokov, from their home in Ohio. As their mission ends, Romanoff and Belova are put through the Red Room for further training. Let me just say right off the bat, out of all the Marvel movies, every one that we have, even the shows up until this point, that intro is heavy. Like
there's a lot going on, a lot of information to take in right in that just first 10 minutes of that movie.
Well, even before we get to like catching up with her in modern or 2016, where she's like on the run, like the opening credits where they show like the Smells Like Teen Spirit cover, and they show the.
I hated the cover, to be
honest. I know the cover was not that great, but I'm just saying is in terms of like the visuals of it, and then like man, that was some heavy shit right off the bat. I forgot about it.
This movie starts great and slowly becomes bad.
I disagree.
The end is terrible.
Oh,
instead of slowly getting better, it slowly gets worse. That's what I'm gonna say.
I mean, yes, I can understand it becomes what I like. They all should die within. They all should be dead.
Well, they can all fly. We'll get there.
But the start of this movie is it sets the tone for what I was hoping the tone would kind of stay with, or at least it does sometimes, and it fucking doesn't at other times.
Yeah.
But I just, you know, I forgot how like heavy it was in terms of seeing like the beginning and in terms of like this. What's that?
That's what I'm saying about this movie. It deals with a lot of fucking heavy topics, and then just never really. It's like I'm gonna show it to you in like clip format or allude to it, and never actually show it to you.
I mean, yeah, they kind of do mention little things here and there that they do in the Red Room, and they
mention it. They don't show it to you.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Is that and I argue whether or not would have been great to get more visuals of what they went through in the Red Room. Yeah, but considering there's a lot more to do in this movie too, or a lot of things that they're trying to push in there.
The emotional weight of the movie hinges on it and that's why the emotional weight of the movie never delivered.
I think, yeah, and that I agree with you on that.
Because we all know what happened to her in Endgame. That's why I said this movie should not have been released after Endgame. Period.
Well, that's part of it, but the other part of it is like we were, you know, before this we know glimpses of what, or heard of what Natasha's gone through, and so she went through, and I'm generously paraphrasing here and for this and condensing it, like hellacious training to become a like wound up soldier. Stop me if you've heard this. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Marvel made this insane soldier.
She was brainwashed and made to.
Again, stop me if you've heard this before.
Or so we've heard.
but my point is that like, and I'm kind of backing up what Baseman says here in the sentence of like we understand like the horror that she went through, but we don't understand bigger scope of why it's important to take the Red Room down until the very, very end. Like, it's a personal vendetta, or like, we got some business to wrap up here. Let's go after the guy. Like, that's the part that got me. But we'll get there when we get there.
This movie should have been much more introspective on her character dealing with like the things that she's done, and it touches on it, and then just fucking glosses right over it. It's like, okay.
But I still think the opening was fucking badass. I loved it.
The opening is very good.
Also, I forgot about when Alexei moves the fucking giant, the metal barrel, whatever the fuck it is that's blocking the airplane. I'm like, oh yeah, shit, that's a thing. Yeah, I couldn't remember. I couldn't see what it was. I had all the lights turned off because my shoulders were out. So we flash forward to 20. We flash forward to 2016, following the battle between the Avengers at Leipzig/Halle Airport. I'm saying that wrong. Romanoff is a fugitive from the government for violating the Sokovia Accord. She escapes from U.S. Secretary of State Thaddeus Ross and flees to a safe house in Norway, where she reunites with her contact Rick Mason. Elsewhere, we see Yelena Belova, God, these names I'm going to fucking butcher throughout this whole thing, is still working for the Red Room, where she kills a former Black Widow, only to come in contact with a substance called red dust that removes the Red Room's control of her. She sends the antidote to Romanoff's safe house in the hopes that she will return to help her. So, the one thing that I actually really liked that the movie tried really hard to do was the family stuff. Like, I know it didn't, it was like stuck in like first gear for me as far as that, but yeah. I will appreciate them trying to build something out of it and try to, like, you know, you're not my real dad, but it was real to me at the end. Like, it was.
I really liked the family stuff at the beginning. Yeah. And they kind of didn't stick that landing later on for reasons. As far as this part, though, like, what's your thoughts on the fucking, like, this movie has some weird fucking MacGuffins, like the red mist and the pheromone shit is just.
Yeah, that was a little
weird.
It was weird for me too, but at the same time, it's like, all right, well, how else would you stop these people that you are creating to be these mass dark, like, badass assassins from attacking yourself?
Plot convenience.
The way to stop them is through something that's airborne and easy to fucking share. It should have been like, I don't know. I know I'm not, like, they had tracking chips. I would have gone with a fucking implant or something. It's a bit more believable than mist that changes your understanding.
So, I mean, yeah.
Could have been a smell of something, because they went with the smell theme later.
Oh, we'll get there. Plot convenience for sure, but I mean, again, like, it's the idea of, like, we have to create some sort of, like, we have to create something in it, yeah, to move the story along, because it can't just be like, you know, hey, we're gonna take down the Red Room, let's do it, and then like 80s montage, all hands in, yeah, like it's not gonna be that, obviously.
I got a question though, like,
close to it though.
They're supposed to be spies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes,
spies / assassins.
The mother and the father.
They are neither of those at all.
They're
dressed in all black uniforms in public. It's like how
The mother is the Red Room scientist slash widow, so she's under the same training and influence that that Black Widow went under.
no, I mean like just in general, all the widows are supposed to be spies or assassins, and they act anything like what they are. They're dressed in all black. They don't. They're in the fucking middle of Budapest or Hungary or whatever, and they look. I could pick them out from any crowd because they're fucking all latex.
I see what you're saying. Like it's like if it was happening at night, if it was happening at night, I would get it. But it's during the day.
They don't act. They don't act or fucking look like what they're supposed to be at all. And why? Okay,
Well,
like serious question. Why are they all women?
Black Widow.
But that's not an answer.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely, it is.
It's not. No, but why? Like, if you were gonna create a whole organization of
You're
spies,
thinking too much about it.
Basement. Only the female Black Widow spiders carry the deadly venom that kill humans.
Which
I get that, but if you were gonna create, I know what a Black Widow is. If you were gonna create an organization of spy assassins,
yeah.
why do they have to be women?
Because they
Especially
might be
if you're gonna go
uterus.
through the trouble, especially if you're gonna go through the trouble of de-uterizing them.
The Basement. Go back to Iron Man 2. That's why they're all women. You can easily
but the thing is, they
overlook
don't.
a woman. You can easily overlook a woman in that kind of a situation if she is blended into her surroundings.
I agree if that's the only situation they're used for. Which this film does everything to tell us no. They're just soldiers.
you are correct. You are correct.
If they were the femme fatale, then it makes perfect sense. But this movie doesn't go that way.
My only guess is that maybe that women are more easier to.
It's because Harvey Weinstein runs the fucking company.
Oh my God, Harvey Weinstein. It is far. Oh my God, it is Harvey Weinstein. Holy shit, that's fantastic.
That's why.
Oh my God, that's great. It is. It's fucking Harvey Weinstein. So, my only guess is that because women might be able to be more trusting and able to let people's guards down. I am throwing that is a fucking
I agree
Hail,
with that.
Hail Mary if I've ever heard
It's
one.
also because of that plot convenience of his pheromone.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Oh well, we're gonna talk about it.
I agree with.
Because you know what? It's brought up in the movie, so we have to talk about it.
Yep.
I agree with the idea if they weren't like portrayed as just soldiers and more like undercover spies. This is why I don't think this movie knows what it is.
By the way,
talks about them being spies and then does everything to tell you that they're not.
The other thing I want to stress too, and this is something that I've watched Black Widow. This is my third go around. This time before getting ready, I watched it twice before. What it took me a minute to realize is that the whole like mind control thing is not is new. It's not something that was done to people in the Red Room throughout. The whole mind control aspect is a new facet of the Red Room to create these Black Widow soldiers. So it's not because obviously it would be the case like Black Widow would be under control. What's her name? Fucking the mother, Milena would be under control. So that's why I was a little confused at first. I'm like, well, why the fuck? Like Yelena is, but Milena, the mother, and Natasha are not. And that took me a couple of go-arounds to kind of realize that. It's like, well, what the fuck's the difference now? Oh, they're using some sort of, thing to control their minds. Gotcha. Now it makes sense. I will say that I did like the, like I said, the dark beginning, lot to take in. I was like, oh, that's fucking heavy. And then it sort of slows down with Natasha. And then it just kicks up with Yelena like, oh shit, I gotta fucking run. Like, Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne. And then we're off to the races.
Speaking of Jason Bourne, like this movie, it gives you that. It reminds me of Jason Bourne at times. When it's good. Like when the movie is at its best, it reminds me of Jason Bourne, and I really think they should have went with the spy thriller. But I love the scenery with Natasha scene, and she goes, "And I got who this arms guy or whatever the fuck he is, the guy that helps her. Wait, where is this guy? What is this guy?"
Oh, Rick Mason. Yeah, no, just friend under the radar. He gets her shit that it just easily runs out.
How does she have so much money?
She doesn't. If you remember, he sits there and says, when you give me time and money, I can do a great deal of things for you.
Well,
And
she does
she's
eventually
really
do a
in debt
great
to
deal
him
of things.
because of everything that he has gotten for her.
I don't know, man. A helicopter.
He wants that booty. Wants that Black Widow booty.
I'm not talking about the helicopter that he got. I'm talking about
he was gay.
things that he's gotten for her in the past.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah. So, as Romanoff unknowingly drives off with the antidote, she is attacked by Taskmaster, who is after the red dust. Romanoff manages to evade Taskmaster and learns that the dust came from Belova. The two reunite in Budapest, but are then attacked by the Black Widows. While escaping, Romanoff learns that the Red Room is still active and that their leader, Dreykov, is still alive. In order for her to join S.H.I.E.L.D., her mission was to kill Dreykov, and after detonating a building with him and his young daughter Antonia in it, an act that haunted her, both were presumed dead. Romanoff and Belova evade Taskmaster and meet back up with Mason, who supplies them an aircraft. So there's a lot to digest in this part. So first and foremost, as much as I'm a little iffy and sideways on Taskmaster, and that's just because of the origin, and I'll get to that. The introduction of Taskmaster is fucking awesome. With her,
I don't. That's not the introduction though. The introduction of Taskmaster happens in a fucking room.
Oh yeah, where we see like studying Black Widow's
why?
moves.
But why?
Why
would they do that? Like, oh my god, man.
Okay, let me rephrase that. The
Soldier
action introduction of Taskmaster is great because you get to see a little bit of Black Panther's moves, clearly Captain America's moves, a little bit of, I think, Hawkeye. Well, no, Hawkeye's comes in a little bit later. That is one thing I will give this movie. If I will fight to the death on anything on this movie, with I think the exception of maybe one or two things, the fight sequences and the choreography on this are pretty fucking solid. At least
For most of them, I would agree with that on.
I'm not saying all of them. I'm saying most.
Yeah. A good portion of them are very, very good. Very well done. The introduction of Taskmaster was a little... I gotta go take care of a screaming kid before he blows up again.
I've got a question in this movie. Every time we get to a certain place in this movie, this movie does a very poor job of building anticipation or anything.
I think that's the biggest problem. And you know what the worst thing is? It's right from the get-go because we know what's going to happen to Black Widow.
Yeah, I mean, well, we know what's going to happen to Black Widow. Yes.
That's my point,
But
though,
then,
you know?
But okay, they do it with Taskmaster, and then the next scene when she goes to fucking Budapest, they don't even tease who it is because she fucking speaks before she enters the door.
It's Budapest.
Everything is given away before the audience can actually build up anticipation for what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not good storytelling.
Listen, I'm not saying the storytelling was good. I'm just saying I like the action sequence. I at least like the fight between Taskmaster and Black Widow, at least it's the beginning one. I thought it was fun. I'm not saying it's the best stuff.
Do we know how she knows where she is? I don't know. I might have missed
Who
it.
is in the box of stuff that he left on the helicopter for her from Budapest, and they had that argument? It's Budapest.
My only guess is that they were tracing the red dust somehow. Take your pick on that one, but that's my only guess on that one.
Cool action scene, I guess.
I'm not saying it's the best shit. I'm just saying I thought it was kind of like, I'm like, neat. That was fun.
It's very much a Marvel action scene.
Yeah.
For me, like
When Taskmaster showed up and
on the bridge.
Assmaster.
Oh, yeah. She's a mimic.
Yeah,
I'm saying
it's a cool idea for a character.
I love that power. I think that's a very, especially a street level tier. Like, it's one thing because I know DC did it with Amazo with like the robot that could copy anyone's power, including like Superman and blah blah blah. But I think like a street tier level one that could mimic like fighting stances of like your Hawkeye, your Black Widow, your Captain America, your Black Panther. That is extremely interesting to me. Fun fact:
she's way above the power of this other street tiers because she has the same strength level technically, right?
Yes, I was gonna say too. Fun fact: in the comics, there Taskmaster is able to predict and anticipate moves as well. There was only one person that the Taskmaster cannot predict their moves and fighting stances of. Any guesses who you think that might be?
Iron Man?
Nope.
Oh, it would be someone that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Come on.
Ant-Man?
No, you're getting warmer with the comedy.
Thor?
Deadpool?
Nope. Deadpool. Deadpool is the only character in the comics that Taskmaster cannot fucking predict because even Deadpool doesn't know what moves he's gonna fucking do. So, fun fact. So Yelena and Natasha reuniting in Budapest. I feel like they wanted that moment to be more than it was. Am I the only one who felt like that?
This is where the anticipation is missing.
Their sister, yeah.
This is why it would have made. Okay, man, I don't know. I don't think we didn't need to see fucking what's her face get sprayed in the face. We should have been questioning whether or not she was. Yeah, we should have been questioning whether or not she was just fucking indoctrinated or not. And then that fight scene between the two would have meant something. I didn't care about that fight scene between the two at all.
Where's your pen?
Because there's no reason for me to care. They're both on the same side. I already know this.
Between Yelena and yeah.
If I didn't know it as a viewer, then I would have cared a bit more.
Shit, that's actually a very good point.
Yeah, I agree with you. They would have. This movie tries to elicit emotion and can't fucking do it.
Like I said, I give the movie credit for trying something, and I know that like
this movie has all the ingredients to be very good.
Yeah, they're just not quite hitting. But the still a lot of exposition where like basically Yelena confirms to Natasha that Dreykov is still alive, and then the idea of like I do like a little bit of the thread connecting where it's like we find out that Natasha's last loyal mission to prove that she's loyal to S.H.I.E.L.D. was to kill Dreykov, and then the daughter was there, so there's a little bit of like guilt associated with it, and it's polarizing. So I mean, I did that aspect I actually thought was really somewhat intriguing.
Is this isn't the moment they show the flashback, is it? I don't think so.
I think it's either I think this is.
I think it comes a bit later, but that's another missed opportunity, man, to get a bit more like everything. I'm looking at everything from afar. Even she's looking at what she did from afar. Yeah, she can see the kid and the thing, but we don't see her plant a bomb or fucking interact with anybody. It's clear, and then
bombs are planted as a convenience,
right? That tells me that apartment was used by Natasha before.
Yeah, I just wish they kind of got a bit more dirty in this movie. Yeah. They tease you with how dirty it could get, and then they're like, "Nope, squeaky clean, baby."
Show them shoulders and ankles.
Watch us 7-year-olds. Yeah. Oh God. But no, I mean it's. No matter what I'll say when I criticize this movie, it's still an enjoyable movie. There's like I can't say it's a bad movie. It's just it fucking is a weird one.
We see the giant chase sequence with Taskmaster using like a little bit of like the Hawkeye moves with them like the blowing up the cars and everything, and them I think Yelena gets they crash the car and then they go hide in like the roof, or not the roof, the ventilation system, and Natasha's like, "Oh, me and Clint here for two whole days." So again, I think that's when we start to see the flashback and everything to answer your question earlier, Basement. But like, there are little nuggets of things that I do enjoy, and I just wish we just put the pile together and just make it a little more cohesive.
Too much action in this movie.
I say there's not enough.
Well, there's
it all culminates to basically almost a fucking Infinity War battle scenario at the end.
I was gonna say a Michael Bay wet dream, but okay.
This movie needs to be smaller scale. In all honesty, like it works when it's smaller. Every time the movie is like intimate and smaller, the movie is very good. When it's not, it's not.
Well, that's the funny thing is I feel like it keeps pendulum swinging. It keeps going from
the pacing is all over the place.
Well, no, I mean in terms not even just the pacing. I'm talking in terms of the scale of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like on one hand, it's like
I was gonna say, you know why I think? I honest to God think that this movie has a director and another director. A director of action scenes and a director of
I'm sure
everything
they do.
that's not action, because the actions there's half this movie is action.
Mhm.
Almost half. And anytime the action happens, it could have been made by anybody that's ever made a Marvel movie. There's nothing special about any of the action. Then the actual scenes that are made by the director are like pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Hey, you wouldn't know, yeah, you're not wrong. I could definitely see that being the case because of the way that some of the things they just like
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like somebody with ADHD.
That's why I don't direct films. So Romanoff and Belova decide that they need to infiltrate the Red Room. They're going to try and find the Red Room, and they're going to take down Dreykov once and for all. However, they don't know where the Red Room is, so they have to go find someone who might know where it is, which of course brings us to Alexei. I don't give a shit. Favorite character and best character in the entire movie, bar fucking none.
Who?
Rob him of a lot.
The Red Guardian.
So I have the only problem that I have with his character is he's supposed to be really smart, but God, is he the dumbest motherfucker?
No, he's not. They purposely go out of his way to say he's dumb. He says, "I was muscle."
They rob him of a full character arc that he could have had.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because he's him and Yelena are the two best things in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. No doubt.
She gets somewhat of a character arc. He gets fucking chopped off halfway through.
Oh,
and just becomes a laughing stock.
I do want to touch base real quick on the on Yelena as well. You know, building up to this because that's when we get the whole like, you like my vest? It has lots of pockets.
Great casting. This movie has great casting all around. To be honest,
it does. Yelena is such a breath of fresh air in the Black Widow role because I mean obviously it's Marvel. You're gonna have somebody doing quick whips and all sorts of like the Marvel brand of humor, but like presumably when we get to the end of the movie, obviously it seems like Yelena is going to fit in that role, and she just has so much more charismatic personality than fucking Scarlett Johansson does. So
Scarlett Johansson is like the constant scowl. It's like she's trying to compete with Carl Urban from Judge Dredd.
But this is why like Captain Marvel needs to burn in hell. Because like you can have a leading female role and have it charismatic as shit if you cast the right person. Yes, people are Captain Marvel's supposed to be unlikable. What movie does well with a fucking super unlikable lead especially a superhero movie? Come on, man.
Did you end up finishing it, by the way?
Man, I don't think I could.
I know. So I'm going to ask this question. Do you think maybe Scarlett Johansson was told to not be as charismatic?
Yes. She's playing the role she was meant to play, and
right.
she plays it very well.
I'm not knocking Scarlett Johansson for that, and I'm not even knocking the character. That's what the Black Widow character is. What I'm just saying is that the two of them together having essentially the exact same abilities, thank you, is nice to see, and it kind of flushes both of them out a little bit more, which I really liked.
Which is why I kind of like I like what they do with her, which is kind of what infuriates me with what they do with Red Guardian. Because
I agree. They could have done so much more. They could have done so much more with him.
He needed a tender side, and it's shown at the very beginning of the movie when he's undercover. I mean, just because you're undercover doesn't mean you're a completely different person. You still have to have real emotions. And his undercover self was like a loving, caring father, it seemed like. And then he's just a fucking dumb, drunk idiot.
The other part of it too was that I was a little the big thing for me with his character was the frustration I had was he couldn't decide what was more important to him until the very end, which I don't know if that was done on purpose, but like, case in point, we saw him at the beginning of the movie, right, where he looked like he was concerned for the family. I mean, he's getting the girls out of there. He could have fucking left them, they're not his daughters, but he showed care to get them out of there. Then we get to him in the prison where he's clearly obsessed with Captain America and being a fighting soldier again. But then we get the dinner table scene where he's like about the family and like actually it's just
his character is not consistent, and it's a directing issue. I would honestly say like him being in prison for as long as he's in prison, he should leave prison with that change already in hand. Instead he ends up in the fucking helicopter with all the bravado he had in prison, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. The show he puts on prison would make sense if he just got to prison, but he was in prison for a long fucking time, and like all he had before that was that family. It's very weird, and they cast the perfect guy to do it. All they had to do is just let him reach that character arc.
He let him be an actor we all know he can be.
Let them all be when they're acting, they're fucking incredible. But
yeah,
everything else is just
Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, Ray Winstone. I mean, goddamn,
the cast is incredible. It's just they never get the chance to shine as much.
And I felt with Rachel Weisz's character, I felt like she was trying to play the same British scholar student that was kicked out of the.
They handcuffed her character so much too.
Out of the Oxford school from fucking The Mummy.
Lewis Young as scientist Morocco #1. You know, I mean, it's a great cast.
He killed it out of the park.
But anyway, we do catch up with him in prison, which, God, this is gonna open up a can of worms. And I think we talked about this before last night, where he's arm wrestling the prison guards or the fellow prisoners, and he's talking about his big conquest, about his big fight with Captain America. To which one of the prisoners like, when did this happen? He's like, 83. I don't know. He was still in ice. He goes, you calling me a lighter? And just basically, snaps his wrist. Of course, through trials, tribulations, and whatnot, they are able to plan the escape, which. I thought the escape scene was kind of cool, where they're like, they're all over the place. It's chaos incarnate, and then fucking avalanches coming right behind them.
And Elena just turns and looks and goes, "Oh, that'd be a really cool way to die."
Yeah, that's the shit I'm talking about. Like, Elena's like just the fun little lines here and there, but
the only part with this scene that kills me is like it's supposed to be a redemption arc for a known killer, and in her redemption, she kills thousands upon thousands of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. Marvel. So obviously this is the big, like the big frustration is, of course, his fucking story. It's funny. It's great to see him like be like the big macho guy, like I am Red Guardian, with like the tank top that was at one point white when he got it, but is not white anymore in color. Easily beats up the other guys because he's the Russian first super soldier, which. That opens up another fucking can of worms from Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there's another super soldier out there. Fucking Christ. There are so many of them out running around now. But obviously the idea of him fighting Captain America means he's either lying, he's wrong about the dates, which I don't think that's right, or it's not Steve Rogers. So that's a whole nother fucking avenue.
I just think he's lying to big himself up, and like in his mind, in his mind, he's so much bigger than he is, and that's kind of his character. But that's where you need that redemption that doesn't come.
But either way, I think he's my favorite character in this movie. Fucking no bar none. Sorry, I know he has no character arc really, or it's hollow at best. But I still don't care. So much fun
he's so much fun because they set everything up and they do it perfectly, and the actor does it perfectly. It's just, and he's like I said, him and Yelena are the two best things in this movie.
Correct.
I think his character arc wasn't his acting. I think it was the writing.
No,
Oh,
it's the
100%
writing
it was the
and
writing, yeah.
directing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like, yeah, no, we're gonna go here.
it definitely has nothing to do with his acting. It's
Oh,
the
no.
directing and writing of what they wanted to do.
So they break Alexei out of prison to learn where Dreykov is, and he tells them that they need to speak with Melina, who has been living on a farm using mind control on pigs. Yelena reveals that while they were not a real family, she still wanted to believe that they were so, while Alexei and Melina admit that they too wish they were a real family. Melina gives away their location to Dreykov, whose agents arrive and take them away to the Red Room, which is located on an aerial base. Now, here's some more stuff. So, I love the banter in between where like, if we're gonna go here, we gotta get gas. We're not gonna make it. We'll be fine. It's fine. We're gonna make it. And then just fucking drops.
It's a funny cut. It's just like, why would you fucking willingly run out of gas in the air? It's a funny cut. It works, but come on.
I also love him. He's like, does he talk about me? Who? Captain America. Does he talk about the old glory days?
I gotta pinpoint one of the worst fucking scenes in this is they start joking about like ripping out the uterus and stuff. I'm like, man, this is one of the key things in this movie, and one of the crutches for your themes of your fucking everything being taken away from you. And they're
that was
just
awkward.
Jokes.
Yeah, that was the most awkward joke in the whole fucking thing. I was like, do I laugh at this?
It's such like a could have been a much bigger moment for what they're trying to say about the more heavy themes. That it's like, yeah, just go in there, scoop everything out. Like, okay, I guess we're both a comedy and a drama.
Yeah.
Dramedy. I gotta love the dramedy. So obviously they get to where Melina is, where they do the mind control on pigs. So that's a little bit more exposition in terms of what they explaining a little bit more about the whole mind control process, where they're basically able to affect free will, and kind of more exploring exactly what the Red Room has done in terms of advancements when it comes to, implementing new Black Widows. Did anybody else catch that they found this out through the back door of the Winter Soldier project?
Mm-hmm.
Just funny how
also
shit's kind of connecting, but go ahead.
I would die on the hill of saying that she should have been the villain of this movie, not Harvey Weinstein.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Okay, I'm not the only one.
It makes so much more sense for the family storyline and so much more sense for her character, because she's fucking an evil bitch, man. And they're like, for some reason, they're like, hey, she's mom.
It's like that scene with the pig. The scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There, like everybody, like, so she's sitting there just rambling on about fucking all this other shit, and everybody in the two girls, Scarlett and Florence Pugh, are sitting there like, the pig's dying. You don't give a shit about the pig? I agree 100%. I thought she was going to be the villain in this throughout the movie.
It actually hurts. It ruins the movie for me almost that she isn't, and that they just for some reason are like, no, she's a good guy. Why? Because she decided to do one thing. The rest of her fucking tale is terrible.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Who wants bacon?
She should have 100%. Yeah, she should have 100% been the bad guy. Harvey Weinstein is not an impressive bad guy. In real life, yes. In this movie, no.
The family theme, like I said, I applaud them for trying to do something with it, but it just like and this scene I actually like with them at the dinner table, where like you're not my real dad, and then the Elena marches off and
one of the best scenes of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's so unearned.
It's a little, it's hard to, because they're having like three different conversations too. It's like they're exploring the back history of the mind controlled stuff. Yelena's trying to
all over the place.
Yeah, it's tough. Hey, steel fits. God, I love Red Guardian. Like, I just fucking, you've gotten fat. but you know, and then the tender moment with, like, you know, Yelena talking with Alexei and him singing the American Pie song was touching. But then we get to the spy stuff
Really
where,
get
of course,
much out of that. That didn't work for me.
listen, I'm
The
not saying,
American
you know, it
It's
was,
the one
Pie.
thing she can harken back to with her childhood, where she had this fatherly connection with this guy, so they had to put it.
I, why it doesn't work is more so the way the whole fucking house scene is cut up.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth between like emotion, non-emotion,
he
emotion,
go
non-emotion,
he
emotion,
go to
non-emotion.
the bathroom on my hands.
Yeah.
Frostbite sets in very quickly.
And also, like, what the fuck? He went from like, I look at watch the
Night,
first
JP.
part of this movie. Night, JP. Watch the first part of this movie with him, and then watch this part and be like, what the fuck?
Well, he's also realizing that they're not fucking 5 and 12 years old anymore. They're adults now.
I do wish
He
that
should still.
we learned why they were there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I missed it, but why they were in Ohio, why the girls needed to be there. I get why Melina and Alexei would team up, because you have the brains and the brawn. I understand that completely, but they never really explore why
Enough of
they were
anything.
there.
They
Yeah.
kind of touched on it on the news report between them taking off in the plane and then the Cuba scene. Like, the news
doesn't make
reports of
sense.
Russian spy satellites being set up right here in America. Are they taking over? Is this the start of an invasion? Whatever it may be. They touch on it briefly
Yeah,
with
I-
those
I'm also
reports in the beginning.
I'm also kind of confused as to Scarlett Johansson, like a Black Widow. She's obviously had some form of training, because they're like, you started younger than she did,
Yes.
but then
Uh-huh.
she's there with them. There's not enough. I
What do you mean
don't
she's
know
there
enough.
with? Oh, you mean
When
Like,
she when they pick Elena.
yeah, like the beginning is probably one of the better scenes in the thing, but that's just there's not. Yeah, like I agree with you. There's not enough explanation of what the
There's
fuck's
not enough
happening.
points to actually get the full story of why they were placed in Ohio.
I wouldn't
I
even.
kind of wish part of this movie was removed and the rest of it was built upon more.
Right.
Like Taskmaster could have been fucking taken out of this movie almost entirely,
don't-
or
I-
focused
I-
or focused on more, like either Harvey Weinstein and the whole fucking Black Widow initiative. I don't know, man. There's so much better ways to have made this movie than the one that they decided to go with. Is all I'm saying.
It does feel a little bit put together, but in terms of like, oh, we're just gonna so of course they all get captured, they all get taken up to the Red Room, which is now in an aerial aircraft, taking of course a page out of Shield's
Weird
book.
fucking place. It's such a weird fucking. The
By the
Red
way,
Room. It's like-
Alexei getting shot by 30 fucking tranquilizers won't never stop
I
being
was
funny to
fine
me.
before that. You think one dart can take me out?
It's a gigantic floating city. I'm like, okay, how does this? Whatever.
So, so at this point, as Dreykov congratulates Milena on finding them, it is revealed that Milena and Romanoff used face mask technology to switch places back at the farm, having planned their own capture. Romanoff learns that Taskmaster is none other than Antonia, the daughter of Dreykov, who had suffered damage so severe that Dreykov was forced to put a chip in her head to help her, turning her into the perfect soldier. Romanoff also discovers that she cannot harm Dreykov due to a pheromone lock he installed in every widow, and that he has been controlling widows all around the world via his control desk. After goading Dreykov into punching her in the face, Romanoff intentionally severs a nerve in her nasal passage to negate the pheromone and allow herself to attack Dreykov. I will honestly say that is probably the most clever thing in this entire movie.
It is.
My mind has shut down at this point.
No, it's-
Why wouldn't he put that chip inside everybody's head?
Because I think he perfected it with the pheromone, with the mind control stuff.
No, with fucking what's her tits, Taskmaster.
Right. I'm saying is I think that the chip was a predecessor to the mind control devices and the way he's using now.
But he uses both on her, right? Yeah, he does.
Yep.
I just. This again, we get like an in look at the red room and it's just fucking people doing Tai Chi.
Yeah, it's a yoga studio.
Oh my god, the horrors.
Listen, have you been in a yoga studio?
And then the pheromone thing. Oh man.
So there's a couple of cool, clever things in here I kind of like. The face swap was clever. What's that?
Never mind. I was gonna say, how does he produce a pheromone? That like
Your body naturally produces a pheromone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, but how does he produce that? Well, what is it? Just attuned to his?
Yep.
And only his?
Yes.
Only his. Yes.
Yeah.
So he is protected from the widows turning on him.
Right, because otherwise, it would be she can't
He
attack anybody.
He would have died a long time ago.
God, I hate this.
Hey, shut up! We need to make a movie. So.
Hey Dreykov, why are you coming out there with a bottle of wine and an open robe? Harvey, the face swap thing I thought was kind of clever. The idea that he's basically saying, I'm going to see, this is the part I have trouble with, is that like we don't get the stakes until now of why it's important to take down the Red Room.
I also don't understand, like he alludes to like, oh, if I want this to happen and I want this to happen, it happens. How?
He has widows placed all over the world.
But we saw them fail in fucking the first scene we see them in.
Well, one failure does not. I mean, he wants to. He's basically saying that he's going to have an army of widows that he can control their complete free will on. So they have no free will whatsoever. So they are.
It is just like it's like just an absolute that he can do everything that he's saying he can do.
Well, he's saying not yet, because if you listen to his speech, he's saying like, oh, once I have an Avenger under my control, meaning he's alluding that he's going to do the same thing to Natasha.
But think about the grand scheme of the MCU, and think about his plans.
Didn't say it was a good plan. I'm just telling you what it is.
And think about his protection.
Yep.
A pheromone that stops his own people from killing him, but nobody else.
Correct.
And he's okay because he floats in a magical city above the ground.
Yep.
That nobody else but the widows know.
And
where
listen,
it is.
before you do the whole floating base shit, S.H.I.E.L.D. had a fucking shit ton of those aircraft carriers. So I mean,
yeah, but at least they were fucking moving in some direction, or they had the fans. I don't know what the fuck. I guess this has fans too, but it's like a weird. I don't know. I just said
fans.
Okay, so
I love this place.
The biggest problem with this movie is that it's part of the MCU.
I think
and has to adhere to the world of the MCU and has to reference the MCU.
Yeah, nope. I think that you're right, because I think I said this before. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it many times on different reviews here, that the MCU's canon is and its ties to everything is its greatest strength, but it's also its greatest weakness when it comes to writing. And this is an example of the weaker side of things, where you have to like make sure that certain things tie in together. Hell, I heard a rumor that apparently Kevin Feige has hired a couple of people for every movie and show to keep track of timeline and certain characters.
Well, there's continuity is the thing on every fucking movie there is. It's just now it's continuity for the entire universe. And by God, is that going to be the most impossible job in the world?
It is.
No, because we're doing it okay.
Megan Thee Stallion has officially been added to the MCU.
Oh man, we're just saying it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. But part of the reason why it doesn't make sense, I feel, is because of the placement. We already know what's going to happen to Black Widow at this point.
Yeah, that is
like as soon as you think of the MCU as a whole and something that all the characters are aware of because they allude to it all the time in this movie, his plan is fucking dumb as shit.
Yes, it is, but that's what you would expect from a Russian overlord.
He's trying to take what was working for him, or what he was trained to do, what he's best at, and trying to do it on a mass scale.
I mean, one of his subordinates talk about a god, a god sent to Earth. So you think he'd kind of be like, well, what happens if he shows up?
On one side, okay.
An army of women that listen to me is not not gonna save me.
No, but on the other side of it too.
Taskmaster, though.
This is why his character just doesn't work in this film at all for me. At all. If he was in the shadows and you never saw him and he was just operating, then I could have got it. But like, he's known and he's fucking in a flying city for some stupid ass reason.
So nobody could find him.
Right.
I mean, everybody's gonna be able to find him in a flying fucking city.
Heather, he just doesn't. Heather,
meeting for this movie.
He just doesn't get it. It's too smart for it's this movie's above him. It's literally because it's floating
just
in,
like the
floating
city. But okay, I guess she breaks her own nose on the table.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Here for your.
It connects the senses to your brain so that she can't recognize the pheromone.
It's a good scene. And it also shows her conviction. He beats her up a couple times where she can't do anything.
Well, she was trying to get him to sever it, and she's like, "Well, you just weren't powerful enough." So,
I mean, there is the underlying theme that's very underlying. It's probably fucking shoved in her face of like, you know, men taking advantage of women, and I would say specifically in Hollywood because this guy's fucking 100% Harvey Weinstein. And he's taking away women's free will, making them do what they want. So it's this is that. I just don't think he just doesn't. He's just not a great villain.
I think he's the best villain in the MCU. Nothing? No? Okay.
No.
I can't.
For that one.
Yeah, I know. I tried. So Milena attempts to take out the ship's engine while Alexei battles Taskmaster, and Yelena searches for the other widows who are sent to protect Dreykov. Dreykov escapes as the widows gang up on Natasha, but Yelena creates a red dust bomb that releases the widows from mind control. Romanoff gets to the control desk and releases the other widows worldwide just as the ship begins to explode and fall. Milena and Alexei are forced to escape the ship via an aircraft just as Yelena takes out Dreykov's escape ship, killing him. Man, seeing him go up in flames and seeing Harvey Weinstein burn in hell is a fantastic visual.
Yes, it is.
I wanted to mention too. There's like they're about to give us something with Red Guardian fighting Taskmaster. Yeah. We never fucking get it.
I was about to say again, just like
God damn it.
Yeah, Milena, I just want to say if I damn it,
to crush something, and then it's like 2 seconds and
damn it. Yeah, there wasn't much of a fight, which I was actually kind of bummed about because I really would have loved to have seen a longer fight between Red Guardian and Taskmaster. Fuck, I think that was actually some of the most stuff we got out of the trailer fodder was the two of them. But anyway,
I gotta say, like, sorry, before we go on, I gotta say for a movie that really like places a lot on like female empowerment, because it's an empowering empowering movie for females. Taskmaster should have just been played by a woman in a suit, not a man. The whole time.
Wait, say that again.
The whole time somebody's in that suit doing anything, it's a man.
That's what it seems like, yeah.
It is. It is.
It's the stunt double, yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they just use a fucking woman stunt double? And the answer is because they wanted everybody to think it was a man, because they were hoping that would be a big reveal to people, which was I knew immediately as soon as the movie started.
So
and talked about his child dying. I'm like,
Taskmaster is a bit of a it's tricky for me, because on one hand it's one of those things where it's like that's not comic accurate, which I try not to be, because I try to take it in the stride and scope of, you know, the MCU is different. They're telling different stories. They're doing different interpretations. I mean, shit, the next movie we're talking about, they're doing vastly different interpretations of certain things. But I feel like they just shoehorned in the Taskmaster character into this just to make this movie work, which, you know, the powers are the same, yes. The only difference is that Taskmaster was more of an ex-SHIELD agent who was able to have this special ability where he had like a photographic memory similar to Strange when it came to fighting styles, and he basically became like a freelancer, almost like Mandalorian or like a bounty hunter in Marvel, where like he would just he was more bad than good, but he would go to the highest bidder. And so to have him be like, oh, really, it's been the daughter the whole time, that just irked me a little bit about that. That you know,
the whole daughter the whole time thing pissed me off because they purposely put a man in the suit to throw people off. Because I'm sorry, but you can tell the difference between a man and a woman in a suit. The way that people move is just different.
oh yeah, but that just
So
that
I'm
just
like,
bugged me.
that's just like that. Not only was it a cheap take on the character, they fucking did a cheap take on a fake out.
Yeah.
It's a double whammy. And like first, I feel like that character shouldn't have even been in this movie. Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, like I said, with the introduction of Taskmaster and then the fucking everything after that with anything involving Taskmaster was just
Flat, yeah.
You can tell it wasn't well thought out either because they have Taskmaster in this like suit that you would never put
Anybody?
somebody covert in.
Well,
We
no,
want
well,
you to be a under. Look at the organization that's hiring that has this person. It's his daughter. He's gonna dress. She should be dressed like the other Black Widows, in black spandex, latex. But no, she's in some sort of like iron, Mandalorian gear with bright colors. It just doesn't fit.
I mean, in the comics, it's orange, so.
Yeah, but like this way.
I know. I'm just teasing. I mean, we get of course the titular like wrap up in terms of like, oh, you know, the widows are freed. Everything we get everything wrapped up kind of like in a relatively neat bow. However, Romanoff gives Yelena a parachute, and she and Antonia have one final battle through the sky before safely landing on the ground.
The third act of this movie is a fucking train.
Okay, the only thing I will say, the visual of like the red room area exploding and everything and just shit flying all over the place, the visual of it was kind of neat. That's all I'm gonna say.
I will say, yeah, the when they just show the red room, I'm gonna call it the red room because that's what they call it, the big fucking shit in the sky exploding, looks pretty good. But when you have the individual shots of characters, man, this pretty heavily blue screen or green screen.
Oh, there was one
It
shot.
looks so bad.
There was one shot specifically.
I think it's when she like puts the pole into the thing.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
oh
I'm
my
like,
god, this looks real bad.
Oh yeah, that's the exactly.
And it's not even like you could have recreated that in real life very easily without having to do like when she's sticking it into the. All you need is some fucking fire in front of you.
It's Moon Knight, baby. Moon Knight episode 1. I mean, what about you, Heather? Did you think like the visual of like when everything's fucking exploding and it's the Michael Bay wet dream, just everything going crazy was?
It was a bit much for me. I mean, especially when she got the parachute on Elena and she just narrowly misses 2 giant chunks of this fucking city exploding around her. And
oh yeah, apparently going through the air is like swimming.
Yeah. It was a bit much. They didn't need to go to that extent.
It's too big for this movie. Like the ending is too big for this movie. It doesn't need to be.
It really is.
You talked about Grounded. It ends fucking 2,000 miles in the sky. It's the exact opposite.
It's almost a metaphor in and of its own self. So Romanoff uses the last of the red dust on Antonia, freeing her from the servitude of Dreykov. The rest of the widows
arrive.
arrive.
She just forgives everything. Everybody just forgives everything in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why she would be trying to serve him anyway when he's dead. The rest of the widows arrive as Yelena, Alexei, and Melina say goodbye to Romanoff, with Yelena giving her vest to remember her by. As they leave along with a recovering Taskmaster, Romanoff awaits the arrival of Ross and his men. Okay. I have put up with and defended and tolerated a good amount of stuff about this movie. I have suspended my disbelief well more than I needed to suspend it. What the fuck with that part? Fine, happy ending. Oh, we're a family. It was real to me too. But fine, whatever. Fuck it. But like, she stands there and waits for Ross, and then it's like
everything's
2 weeks later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering where this takes place and everybody else is in fucking prison 2 weeks later. Man, this movie is like
That
the
that
third
is
act is
that is
terrible.
that part is the part that really, like, I'm just like, you just don't give a shit. Ugh.
Also,
Am I
when I'm saying,
wrong?
like, no, you're not.
No, not at all. This part alone is what drags this movie all the way down to middle of the pack for me.
Oh man, this is not alone. This part, there's several parts.
No, I like I said, there's a lot of things I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, it's like, I roll, like, come on. But for some reason, that one's the biggest one where they just, like,
Man, for me, it's the mom, and it's just like all of a sudden, it's fuck. You basically lied to me my entire life. You put me in the program that ripped out my uterus and ruined my life, and you watched the whole thing happen, and then we're family again in 2 seconds because you decided to do one thing.
that's Russia.
That's just as bad as the fucking Ross thing.
That's Russia.
So
So
ridiculous. Taskmaster. The reason I said it's forgiven, Taskmaster got blown up by fucking Black Widow, and she has to have known because they talk about it in her presence.
yeah, she asked for apologies or forgiveness,
No,
whatever.
Is he gone? Yes, he's gone. I'm gonna leave you in the mud. Goodbye. What the fuck is this? Like, the ending of this, everything that happens from the Red Room on is just terrible. Like 2 out of 10.
Anyway, 2 weeks later, Romanoff, now sporting her blonde hair, reunites with Mason, who has supplied her with a Quinjet. She rides off to free the detained Avengers from the
Presumably on no money, right?
Yeah, right.
Presumably on no money.
Yep.
She's in debt beyond anything she can. She doesn't get paid for being an Avenger. We found that out in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So at this point, it's literally right before she breaks everybody else out of prison. So it's like right at the precipice of, like, the Infinity War events. Of course, the big thing we're going to talk about is the post-credit scene, which is set right, of course, afterwards, where it's after Romanoff's death. Yelena encounters Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, Elaine for short, now her employer at Romanoff's grave, and learns her next mission is to hunt the man responsible for Natasha's death. And we see the picture of none other than Clint Barton, a.k.a. Hawkeye. Dun, dun, dun. Now, supposedly, as we mentioned before in previous episodes of the Marvel Roundtable, this was supposed to be the first thing in the MCU, not just in terms of movie, but it was supposed to be the very first fucking thing that came out, like, before everything else that we got. And supposedly we would have seen a scene with Yelena talking with, or Contessa talking with good old John Walker, everyone's favorite Captain America. So it would have, I don't know, I feel like it would have tied in a little bit more and a little bit more build to it. But clearly building up to what we now have confirmed will be eventually a Thunderbolts team up, which is basically your dark Avengers that are from the government that nobody fucking likes.
They're basically MCU's Suicide Squad.
For the most part, yeah. So that's Black Widow.
For basically like the swan song for one of your main characters, it does an awful lot to build up other characters. Like, she's not. This is like my frustration with the new era of MCU, Phase 4. Forget it. They should stop labeling the movies and TV shows about the character that they're actually not about. Because they spend about as much time building up. They spend less time building up Natasha than her sister. Her sister has the most emotional moment in this movie.
Yep.
Like, this happens here. It doesn't only happen here. It happens in half of the things that I've watched for Phase 4 is welcome to this movie where we promote the next thing. And I get it. They want to keep the ball rolling, but especially for this one, it's bad because this is the last you're going to see of that character, presumably. At least do it. Give her a bit more to go out on.
No. Not gonna do it. No.
Remember how I said, like, 2 directors? So I did see, when looking up some of the stuff on this movie, the first person that they approached to direct this movie, this woman, I don't remember her name. She was approached to direct, and she's like, "I'd like to work with Scarlett Johansson, but they told me don't worry about the action scenes. You're not gonna be directing those." And then I also read that all of the action scenes were basically planned out and directed and made before the movie even came to be, and before the script even came to be. They basically built the script around the action scenes.
And this is why the ending was so overdone.
The ending is a travesty and really hurts this movie for me.
So when they announced, and I wanted to wait to this part to talk about it. When they announced a Black Widow movie, my thought process went immediately to, well, what's going to be the takeaway from this, right? Because at this point, the Marvel movies now are puzzle pieces, right? They're puzzle pieces that will fit into a bigger picture of a bigger story. So obviously, my thought process was, okay, they're going to go back, they're going backwards, so they're going to be establishing things that will be more significant in the future. Realistically, the only things I took away from this was that was Yelena, Taskmaster still alive, and maybe something to do with either Red Guardian / the concept of mind control, because maybe they'll use the mind control aspect as part of the Thunderbolts, or in terms of how they recruit some of the people, where it's like, oh, we actually got this from the Red Room, and da-da-da-da, like, maybe that's more public knowledge now. But it's very scattered, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why, myself included, people are like, we don't fucking know what's going to happen with Phase 4 of the MCU. We have no idea where the fuck things are building for, because you have, at this point, you've got, really the only thing that ties up to this is Falcon and Winter Soldier, obviously. You have WandaVision, she's doing her own fucking thing, enslaving people. Loki's breaking the universe, and What If is fine educational programming.
No. What If is fucking garbage fodder.
So, this movie didn't help that, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it didn't. This movie did absolutely nothing to actually further the timeline past, okay, we have a new Black Widow, and now she's blonde.
Yep, basically.
Well, I mean, this is like, I think I said this the other night too, that I would have preferred this being a television show, and I would have preferred them touching on the Budapest thing with Hawkeye, and then eventually getting to this point. There's a lot of storytelling here, and you could have gone a lot deeper with some of the themes when it's a TV show versus a movie, because the sole fucking purpose of this movie seemed to be they didn't know what they wanted to do. They wanted to give a send-off to her. But they really wanted to build the next version of her, and in the end, they kind of did both, but kind of did none.
They were doing too much and not enough at the same time, which is fucking weird to say, but that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I also say, like, with Taskmaster, oh man, if they continue with this version of that character, you remember the original Deadpool and X-Men?
Mm.
That's what the mask ain't ever coming off.
That's what I worry about. I'm fine with the mask not coming off. I'm worried about,
it's gonna be a throwaway. She's a fucking robot with no self-will, and then she got it back. Yeah. So was she gonna become an actual character? Probably. She's gonna be a vegetable.
She's gonna be in Thunderbolts. I mean, there's no cutting it.
But I think she's not gonna have. She might speak one sentence.
Yeah, she's not there for the depth. She's there for her powers. All right, let's break it down. Let's talk about the end. Let's talk about the entire movie. I'll start with Heather this time. Ladies first. Heather, your overall thoughts on Black Widow, and what would you rate it out of 10?
I am in agreement with Basement. This movie didn't do enough of either building the new Black Widow or giving a proper send-off to the old Black Widow for me to consider this a major part of the uptick of the MCU at this point. It's another middle-of-the-pack movie for me. And there have been so many of them up to this point that it's just like, okay, can we move along now? We're done with this. So for that, I would probably put this at a 5.5, 6 at most.
All right. Actually, I'm kind of, yeah, okay. Basement. I'm sure you have nothing really to say about this movie.
I was talking. The only thing I'm thinking about is fucking Simpsons. He holds up that image of like the barbecue.
Oh,
Why does mine look anything like this?
that's a fine looking barbecue. Why does it mine look like that? My favorite from that joke is, can't use English instructions, must use French. Le Grill, what the hell is that? But anyway.
But it's the idea of, on paper, it looks great. In execution, it loses so much. They're all over the place. This movie had so much going for it. It never really delivered on any of its fucking things. The biggest takeaway for me is casting was great. Acting is very good. Everything else, forgettable. I give it a 5 out of 10.
Sorry, I just saw I just found this meme. I'll share it to you guys later, but it's 3 pictures. First one is Black Widow from the first Avengers movie, just like Budapest all over again. Hawkeye from the first Avengers movie. You and I remember Budapest very differently. The third is Loki from the first Thor movie, talking to Odin, yelling, "Tell me!"
Hey, you know what's weird too? When I first watched this movie, I'd probably give it a 7. The rewatch destroyed me.
You see a lot of
well, also where we are and where this will, like, what this is doing to build the future is very like a driplet.
Yeah.
Everybody good? I'm clearly injured. The movie, I think the best way I can phrase it is what I said earlier. It tries to do too much and also doesn't do enough at the same time, which is very frustrating because there's a lot of potential here. And I feel like the best thing that this could have done was make the main story more simplistic and make the backstory for Natasha and Yelena a lot more deeper, because we already know what's going to happen with Natasha. We already are going to assume that Yelena will fill the role, even by a certain point in the movie, even without seeing the post-credit scene. So I feel like it should have been more like 70% backstory, 30% main plot. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would have really helped, because obviously the character's dead. So, I mean, yeah, I know multiverse and other shenanigans and bullshit, you can bring her back fine. But I'd be shocked if they didn't bring her back for Secret Wars. But
maybe for that.
But my point is that, like, you have to think big. With these Marvel movies, I'm sure that we got to tell a good story here, which is great. But you also have to think of the ramifications of how it's going to go. Bigger picture, bigger scope and bigger scale. And it'd be one thing if this was like done, like the other movies where it's like it's all going to eventually build towards this big team up, which rightfully so. This is totally ass backwards. And so it should have been easier, I think, in my opinion, because then you're like, okay, well, we know where this character's going in the ground on Vormir.
It's at terminal velocity.
but you know what I mean? Like it should have you have a rare opportunity to close some gaps, to tie up some loose ends, most of them, and put a pretty good push in the direction you want to go with a certain aspect of character or characters, and it just doesn't quite hit that mark for me. I'm gonna say the 5.5, 6, just in the same ballpark as Heather. There are parts of it that, despite them not following through or not fleshing them out enough, were still intriguing enough. But like, it does not hold up together cohesively together.
No, it doesn't.
Bigger picture, but there are bits and pieces that I enjoy. Like I said, Red Guardian, I don't give a shit what anybody says. Best fucking character in the whole movie. Yelena's fun. the introduction of Taskmaster as in terms of powers is very interesting, but character, it's like fucking wet noodles in a skeleton suit.
You know what the perfect fucking thing for this movie is? Missed opportunity.
Like
Yes.
Red Mist?
It had everything to be so much better.
Like Red Mist?
No, I'm not talking to you. But what a missed opportunity, man. Because there's so much good
Right.
there.
Red Mist. Silence. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up here for Black Widow. I know we're doing it a little bit earlier because guess what? We're not talking about a series this evening. Want to thank Heather and Basement as always, and everybody who joined us live here on the Marvel Roundtable. I did throw up the poll here on YouTube earlier. We did get 8 votes, thumbs up, thumbs down. 75% said thumbs up for Black Widow. So despite us...
It's a thumbs up. A 5.5 or a 5 is still a thumbs up. If
Yeah.
it was 4, it's thumbs down.
So I think it's still up there. Want to thank everybody for joining us in the chat, for interacting with us, as you are awesome like that. Make sure you check out all the other episodes of the Marvel Roundtable down the playlist below if you're watching this on YouTube, and check us out on the podcasting platforms that we are available on: Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, your mother. All of them are available, so make sure you guys listen to us. Before we wrap up this Marvel Roundtable, Basement, Heather, any last-minute thoughts or words or quibbits or special words and phrases?
I am so glad to be done with that shit.
Surprisingly difficult to rewatch. I think it was weird because I remember really actually pretty much enjoying this movie. On the rewatch, I'm just like, what, but huh,
What
but
in
what?
the butt?
And it's also like this movie is times kind of, for it being half action, the action is boring for me. It's so boring. The whole end of the movie was so fucking boring, man.
Still fits. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Black Widow. Thank you, and this week's edition of the Marvel Roundtable. Thank you all for tuning in. When we come back to the Marvel Roundtable, I am personally excited for this one because this is one of my favorite MCU movies. All of them. This is one of my personal favorites. When we come back, we explore some different origin stories and explore a new side of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we explore the true origins of the Mandarin and the power that he holds along with his family as we take a look at Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.